intention work? So again, Breann Clark and Tessa Lybert. In today's workshop, we're going to explore important parts of our life to determine values that guide our behaviors, and then values will help us determine and understand our boundaries, leading to healthier relationships.
All right, and this is just our agenda for today. So we're just going to start out with an icebreaker. We'll go into a breakout room for that and find some things in common. And then we're going to get into values. What are they? And determining our own values, followed by boundaries, and then determining boundaries. And we will finish with, if we have time, with a focused conversation. And then we will have questions if there are any. All right. So first of all, there is the icebreaker. So we're going to go into a couple of breakout rooms. There's going to be like 5 to 6 people in each one. And in that breakout room, first we're going to share our name and pronouns and where we're logging in from. And then we will find 5 things in common with everyone in the breakout room. So for example, it could be you were all in band in school, or are in band, were in band, you have all been to Illinois, or you like the same artist. Something that we're going to try to avoid just because it would be too obvious is like we all have hands, or we all have like eyes, stuff like that, stuff that like all humans would share. And then we will come back here and just share out some of the things that the group had in common.
So determining our values. On the next slide, we have a list of common core values. We're going to ask everyone take 5 to 7 minutes and look at the list and write down ones that either stand out to you or hold meaning for you. And then after you've completed your initial list, we'll have you sort them into 3 to 5 like subcategories and name those categories based on all of the values in it. But first, Tessa and I are going to share with you our examples, just so you can get an idea of how we laid ours out and kind of how ours looks. So here are mine. So we see in the first column, in step 1, I just listed all of the values that kind of resonated with me, stood out to me. And then in step 2, I grouped them into different categories. So in my category of belonging, I have fairness, equity, and authenticity. In my category of time, I have order, structure, and predictability. And then I have a category for trust and loyalty. Then my next category is pleasure, that has travel and adventure. And then my last category is growth, that has courage, balance, self-awareness, thoughtfulness, knowledge, and achievement. And when we're thinking about making our values, we want to think of how do these values show up in our lives. So example, for belonging, I'm being mindful of those who are in the spaces I'm in. I'm trying to use correct pronouns, feeling uncomfortable in certain spaces or with certain people. So this is where belonging shows up in my life. And then time, I like being aware of my schedule. I want to make plans with my friends instead of hanging out randomly, and being cautious of overbooking myself. So when I'm making my categories, I'm also trying to think about where these values might show up in my day-to-day life.
All right, and then I set mine up similarly, but a little different. So my values, I have relaxation, and under that is adventure, travel, relaxation, and alone time. I have responsibility, and in that is helping, service, sustainability, community, family, friendship, freedom. Then there's integrity, and I have authenticity, trust, loyalty, respect, structure, and under that is work, order, facts, and structure as well. And then my last one is self improvement. And under this, I put curiosity, personal growth, knowledge, learning, purpose, and self control. And then for how these show up in my life, I have a couple examples as well. So for responsibility, it's really important to me to be there for the people in my life and be invested in helping them or just being for them if they need it, as well as I would like to work towards a better community and society. And all of this kind of goes under my value of responsibility. And these are both like, this one kind of encompasses both personal and professional values a little bit. And then I have self improvement. And so for this one, I enjoy spending some of my free time learning new things and practicing new skills.
All right, so here we have our general list of values, and this is where we're going to ask you to take a few minutes to make your initial list and then make your sub lists. And I understand you might not be able to get them all done right now, but we're hoping by the end of maybe 5 to 10 minutes, you'll have at least maybe 2 or 3 different strong values that you hold. And know that this is not an all-inclusive list. We know that there are many other values that might not be on this list. For example, I had equity on my list, and that's not on this list. So if there's other values that you hold that are not on this list, that is perfect, and we welcome you to write those down for yourself. And if you need us to switch back to one of ours for an example, please let us know. But yeah, we're going to give you a moment to start making those lists, and then we'll come back, share out on some of them, and then move to boundaries. So,
Yes. And just something else. So I just went through, I read all of them and wrote down which ones resonated with me and then categorized them, which I think we explained a little bit, but I was gonna just as a reminder. Also, if you have any questions, feel free to just unmute and ask, or you can put it in the chat. And again, we can always flip back to our examples if that's helpful.
And you can always like direct message either Tessa or myself if you don't feel comfortable unmuting or posing a question to the whole group. We do have one question in the chat, Tessa. What were the categories to arrange them in again?
All right, so the categories, if I can go back, um, the different categories, we came up different names for our categories. So there's no like set categories you have to put these values under. But what we did was we grouped the ones together that we felt fit together and then created a name for it or used one of the words to make the name that we had grouped, if that makes sense. And we did like just like 4 or 5, but if you don't get that many, it's no big deal. Um, no problem. I
So I
hope
have
that
a,
helped.
yeah, so there are like no real set categories. It's kind of up to you and what kind of makes sense for you and your values in your life.
Yes, exactly.
We have
And
about, go ahead, Tessa.
oh, I was just gonna show you Breann's again as well.
So how Tessa and my own vary is I pick names from the category that each of the values were in, where Tessa renamed some of her whole categories. So it's kind of what feels right and fits right for your values.
Yes, and it is completely what works best for you because they are your own values and important to you, and nobody else can like dictate what your values should be.
And I have about 40 seconds left on my timer. And I started that a little after we started. But I want to know, how is everyone doing? Has everyone either gotten to like the second step of categorizing them? How are we feeling? Do we need a bit more time? All done. Nice, Mariah. Thank you. Almost done. Awesome, Bethany. Yeah, I think we can take a little bit more time. We originally were going to go to breakout rooms after determining values and determining boundaries, but I think we're just going to all stay together and debrief. Awesome. Thanks, Amy. All right, I think we're going to move on to the next slide. And if you're still working, that's okay. We're just going to check in with a couple of people and see if anyone would like to share.
Yes. Yeah. So originally we were gonna go back into the breakout rooms, but we'll just, since we're a small group, stay here. So um the questions we have are, what values do you have and how do these show up in your life? And you can feel free to unmute or put them in the chat and we can read them out.
I can hop in there, Tessa, while other people are doing whatever they need to. Um, Very interesting, actually, writing it down and trying to separate it. I'll start with like morals and integrity. I would say family, wisdom, helping others, trust within self and other people, loyalty, friendship, family happiness, loyalty, self awareness, and self respect. And then for like relaxation, adventure, stability, relaxation, travel, play, balance, alone time. And then for like work, community, knowledge, collaboration, service, community, teamwork, change, fairness, open-mindedness, thoughtfulness, positivity, problem solving, and passion. And I'd say that a lot of those are all interchangeable between all three categories as well. So thank you for that exercise.
Awesome. Thank you,
Hmm.
Stacy. Appreciate your input. Anyone else? Can we maybe get one more person either on mic or in the chat share one of their values or how these values show up in their life?
I can go.
Awesome. Thank you.
This is Mariah. So I noticed one of my categories kind of fell under self-care. And I find that though these are all things like I have adventure, travel, wellness, happiness, play, and humor, things like that. These are things that I know that I value, but sometimes I find, especially in the work that we do, I hold more value in these things in other people. Like I'm always trying to get someone else to recognize those values within themselves and work on those things. And I find that sometimes I forget to hold those values for myself. So this was a good exercise for me to kind of just write them down and remind myself like these are things that I find important in my life and I need to continue to work on them in my own life. So thank you for that. It was a good reminder.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Mariah.
Mariah. Those are some good thoughts.
Awesome. So now I think we're moving to boundaries. Yes. So connecting values and boundaries. So when I'm thinking about boundaries, there are two different ways that I'm connecting my values and boundaries. One of them is values help us to know what's important to us, and boundaries are a healthy way of communicating these values if they've been violated by someone else. So sometimes I'm in situations and someone does something that upsets me or hurts me in some sort of way, but I'm not quite sure why. So I always revert back to my values like, oh, they did this and that kind of hurt my value of belonging. So now that I know that, what value am I going to put in place that this action doesn't happen again? And the other way that values and boundaries are related, for me at least, is values help us identify what's going on in our own life when we know something isn't right, but we can't quite put our finger on it. So I feel like before I've really come in tune with my values, sometimes I would feel just not okay with the situation, whether it's something I did or something someone else did. And again, going back to my values and recognizing oh, this happened, someone did this, and that violated one of my boundaries. What can I do, or what can I ask of them that might remedy this situation?
I just wanted to jump in real quick to let you know that they're closing because of all the issues. They're going to cancel the closing session. So we do have an extra 15 minutes. And I also want to offer too, if people want to stay for the full session time too, because I know some of the time was lost, I would be happy to stay and keep this space open. If the facilitators, because I know your time is also, like everyone's time is really precious. And if you don't want to stay and you want to leave, just feel free to DM me as well too. But I'd be happy to keep the space open and make sure that everyone gets the full workshop time that they wanted to get.
Awesome, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. All right, so boundaries. Boundaries are a way of communicating with people what is okay and what's not okay with us. Boundaries are essential to understanding and respecting our own needs and values, and being respectful and understanding of the needs of others as well. Appropriate boundaries look different for everyone based on what is okay with them and what's not okay with them, and that's okay. It's great that everyone has different boundaries. We just need to communicate those and be respectful of everyone else's. And then boundaries can be physical, emotional, material, digital, and time related, and many more. There's no boundary on what sort of boundaries there are. So lots of different boundaries. And sometimes boundaries are different from person to person. So your friend may want to hug, but you don't like hugs. That's an example of mine. I'm not too big into hugs, and that's okay. Your friends like to post pictures on social media, but you like to approve them first. And that's, again, perfectly okay based on the boundaries you set around your social media accounts and the pictures that are posted of you. Your younger sister wants to share clothes, but you don't want to share them because they haven't given back clothes that you've already loaned them. So boundaries based on trust. She hasn't given you the clothes back already, so you don't feel comfortable sharing them now. Maybe your friend wants to go out Saturday night, but you're not comfortable where they're going, how late they're staying out. So you want to discuss more and plan before going out. Maybe you have boundaries about where you go, who you hang out with, how late you stay out. And lastly, you want to go and study with your friends, but they prefer to study alone. So boundaries around education, about studying, about where you study. All right, next slide.
All right. And now we're going to jump into determining our boundaries. So on the next slide, we're going to have a couple examples again from Breann and I and how we took our values to determine our boundaries. And we can do this because values are related to our boundaries and we get our boundaries from the values that we have. And one quick example here I have is I really value authenticity. So I am not okay if someone is gonna like say something to me or maybe be like, this is if it doesn't happen, I don't know. If they like tell me, oh, you look so nice today, but then they go and tell somebody else, yeah, she looked really tired and out of it, that would be something that I wouldn't appreciate. Um, and that's a boundary that I get from this value of authenticity that I have. And so then saying that, we'll just jump right into our examples. So I will start with mine. And these are taken from the values that I determined going through the list and categorizing them like we just did. So the first one is relaxation. So for this one, we have a table that we created we have a portion for a value, and then we say something related to the value that I'm okay with, and then something I'm not okay with, and then finally something I'm committed to. So for relaxation, I am okay with like spending a lot of time and working hard throughout the day so I can have my evenings kind of to relax and chill and like have a time that I need to regroup for the next day. Um, but I am not okay with like having no time for myself if I'm like too busy with work or friends that I just don't have any of that alone time relaxation that I need. I'm very introverted, so that is something that is really important to me. And then Because of this, I am committed to taking that time I need to unwind and chill when I am stressed or busy. And then moving on to the next one that I have, which is responsibility. So I'm okay with being there for friends and family and others when they need someone. But again, going along with that responsibility, um, I'm not okay with being the only person that people rely on. That would be just too much, and that would break into some of my other boundaries that I have. But I am committed to helping others and working towards a better society and better environment for everybody. And then last example that I have up here is self-improvement. So I'm okay with growing my skills, knowledge, and ability, but I'm not okay with not having any time to learn those new things. And I'm committed to learning and trying new things. And one thing I think that if you look at my table, you can see that sometimes these are really connected, whereas like some of the things I'm okay with and I'm not okay with might be like multiple values that those stem from. All right. And then we'll just get into Breann's.
All right. So here's my chart. The values I chose for mine were growth, trust, and loyalty, and belonging. So because I value growth, I'm okay with doing things that challenge me, but I'm not okay with doing things that I once did that held me back. So like holding on to negative thought processes or staying up super, super late. So I'm not okay with just like doing things that hold me back or limit me. And then I'm committed to taking healthy risks and stepping outside of my comfort zone. Because I value trust and loyalty, I'm okay with being cautious about what information I share with people, and I'm not okay with confidentiality being broken in my relationships. Um, so I think those two are kind of, they go hand in hand because I'm not okay with confidentiality being broken in my relationships. So that's why I am okay with being cautious about what information I share with people. And I am committed to listening to my intuition and trusting myself. So kind of listening to my inner voice and knowing what is best for me in my situation and trying to grow my intuition. And lastly, belonging. I'm okay with taking time to make sure my spaces are welcoming and inviting. Although my office at work might be a little messy at sometimes, I try to make it a safe and comfortable place for everyone who comes into my offices. Especially in like my home area, I take the space to like water my plants and make sure that they're happy and my fish. So making sure that I feel safe and that everyone who comes into my spaces feels safe as well. But I'm not okay with being in spaces or relationships where I'm not respected. So um, maybe exiting a relationship or a space when I'm not being respected. Um, and then lastly, because I value belonging, I'm committed to using correct names, pronunciations, and pronouns. Although Breann to me doesn't seem like it's too difficult of a name. It's been a struggle throughout the years, and people sometimes say it wrong or spell it wrong. So I try to use correct names, pronouns, and pronunciations because I know it's part of belonging for me.
All right. And so now you get this opportunity as well to determine your boundaries from your values. And we're going to use the same template where you take your value and then I am okay with, I'm not okay with, and I'm committed to. We're going to leave this slide up while you do that. So you have another example. So this example we have is adventure. So I'm okay with budgeting my money so I'm able to travel more and splurging while I travel to make the most of my time. But I'm not okay with traveling during COVID and risking my health or going too long without going somewhere new. And lastly, I'm committed to exploring things in my town I haven't before, traveling and learning more about different cultures. So we're going to leave this up. We're going to give you, I think, is it
I
5 to 7
can,
minutes?
yeah, I'll put a 6-minute timer, but we can check in maybe 4 minutes in and see how everyone's doing. And if you are struggling on one of the values and maybe you need some pointers for things you're okay with, not okay with, or committed to, we can try to troubleshoot with you and come up with some boundaries around your values.
Yes. And again, feel free to unmute, put it in the chat, or direct message us. Anything works. And if you want us to flip back to any of our examples, we can do that as well. All right, Amy, sorry that you have
Yeah.
to leave early, but thank you for your feedback.
Yeah, thank you, Amy. All right, so we have about a minute and a half left. How is everyone doing? Any values they're stuck on? Just checking in. All right, my timer just went off. How are people doing? Do we need more time? It sounds like it's okay if we need a couple more minutes. Awesome, Mariah's done. How are others doing? Just wrapping up. Awesome, Bethany. And again, after this, we're gonna move into just checking in and seeing if anyone would like to share. So if you need to work through that discussion time as well, that is a-okay. I think it's just important to hear other people's. I know when Tessa and I do this with our youth groups, it always amazes me how easily they're able to come up with their values and boundaries, especially their boundaries. I remember the first time doing it, I struggled knowing what I'm okay with and what I'm not okay with. And it was just inspiring to see how easily the youth were like, I don't like this and I don't like that. And I'm like, good, I'm glad you know. So I really value hearing values and boundaries from others as well. So maybe we'll give it another minute before we move to the next slide. So we'll just give us a little bit more time and then we'll move on. All right, let's move on to our discussion slide.
Yes. All right. So for now, kind of the same thing that we did for the values. Just share out like what value is attached to it, and then what you're okay with based on the value, what you're not okay with, and the commitment. And again, you feel free to unmute, words, unmute, or just put it in the chat.
And you don't have to share all of yours. If there's one you feel super confident about, you can just share that. So you can share as little or as not little as you'd like.
Sorry, I'll share one. Um, so I, my one value is integrity. And so what I did was I took one word from each of my sections. So I had like 4 different sections, and just kind of chose one word from each of those sections. So this was under my work category. So integrity. I am okay with some slacking off or downtime while working, but I'm not okay with saying you're going to do something and then backing out, but still accepting the glory as if you did it. And I am committed to my word. So if I say I'm going to do something, I do it, and I get it done when I say I'm going to get it done.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Bethany. Who else can share one of their values and boundaries around that value with us?
All right. And Mariah put one in the chat. So, wellness, okay with eating more intuitively, moving my body, not okay with restricting or punishing, and being committed to respecting and honoring my body's needs, living an overall happier and healthy life. Thank you, Mariah.
Yeah, those are awesome boundaries.
I I love how you say not okay with restricting or punishing, because I think that's really a good thing to know and to not to do.
I think there's a lot of boundaries I at least need to consider around like wellness with food. I think it's something I've at least struggled with sometimes. So I appreciate you saying that and kind of getting it in my mind. That's another area I need more reflection. So thank you. Anyone else who would like to share?
I can share. This is girl, pronoun she, her, hers. And one of my value is alone time. So I put that I am okay with saying no so that I can take care of myself and do something for myself. I am not okay with using my time that I have for myself to do something for someone else when it can wait. And I am committed to setting aside a set time for myself.
Thank you, Gur.
Yeah, awesome.
And if at any time I do pronounce anyone's name wrong, just let me know. I am totally okay with being corrected.
All right. I think we have a closing little conversation for all of us to go through together. I think it's pretty short, maybe like 5 or 6 questions. And since they canceled the like ending closing together, we can go through them. We have only 5 questions. So focus conversations are just a way we end things at Wise Women. So we thought we'd bring that to our workshop today. So sorry, Tessa, this is your focus conversation. Go ahead.
If you want to, okay.
Go ahead.
All right. So just kind of like a review, what was one of your values? And anyone can share. We'll take probably 2 or 3 for each question.
I have inner harmony.
Thank you. Anyone else? Right, and Mandy put in the chat respect. Thank you, Mandy. Rasa put purpose. All right. Thank you. So then, what was supposed to be one of your boundaries? Mandy says time alone. Stacy says saying no. All right. Thank you both. All right. And then how do you feel after exploring your values and boundaries more? And there are no wrong answers. So
I can hop in, Tessa, on that too. I'm 44 years wise, but I can definitely say like boundaries, values, and relationships And what you want as a human being has definitely changed and evolved over the years. So things that I looked at from a teenage standpoint are completely different than a learning and knowledge standpoint. So anytime that I work with youth or anything, I try looking at it from their standpoint. So, and like expanding on that, but meeting them at a place that is familiar to them and respectful to them and their thoughts and feelings. So if that helps at all, thank you very much.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. And Ross has said, I need to work on my boundaries. I should say more no. Mariah says, yes, same here, saying no, balancing my professional, personal life, time management. And Jennifer also said in the chat, I feel more confident writing my values and boundaries down. Thank you, everyone. Again,
Yeah,
all
those are, yeah, it's just gonna echo that, I love hearing all of that. I know the first time I did this, I felt really empowered because I had never written them down and like reflected on them. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, going off that, it was interesting. Something I'd never thought about before we did this lesson. So I really enjoy it. All right, and then moving forward, how will knowing your values and boundaries impact you and your relationships? All right, from Stacy, self-care, respect for self and others. Mariah, I think this exercise will help me articulate my boundaries out loud with the people in my life. And then Bethany, I second Mariah's sentiments. Again, thank you for all of the answers. And then since we are getting pretty close, Gar says it will help keep me grounded. Thank you. Then we're gonna jump into the last question. What is one thing you want to change now that you know your values and boundaries? Mariah says, no one should be angry with you for setting appropriate boundaries. It's very true. And if they are, that's not your fault. Thank you. That is a great statement. So true. Mandy, having a better way to tell my peers what are my needs. Yes, that is a big purpose of this lesson for sure.
And I just want to note on the who someone said about communicating boundaries. But if we would have had more time, usually the follow-up lesson to this is compassionate or nonviolent communication or I statements. And I statements are a great way to express boundaries to those you're expressing them to. Just a note.
Yes. Well, all right. Oh, got another in the chat. Bethany, I need to create boundaries between inner harmony and work. Yes, I understand that. All right. And then we just have our final slide. So thank you all for being here. We really appreciate that. And then if you have any questions, feel free to ask. And these are our emails down here. So